Well, the Sherline mill has got its wood router Hound today, and this is hopefully going to be the base for the Marklin 4122 7.5, and it needs to be stepped and tiered, so I've got to cut some steps in it, and well, hopefully the Sherline will be up to the task. Well, I made pretty short work of that. I'll come back when I've done the rest of it. Well, I finished, more or less finished, the work on the wooden base on the mill, and for the most part, the little Sherline did an absolutely fantastic job. I knocked off a corner here, that was me, but then they're all going to be, these edges are going to be rounded off anyway. But then we did have a bit of a happening over this side, where is it? Yeah, this side, here. For some unknown reason, I got about to here, and then the wood started to split. I don't know why. So this side is uneven. It's and it's that more has come off basically than it should have. So I'm going to have to get back in with the mill and level that off, and then glue in a fillet and to make it all the right height. But that's a fairly easy thing to do, and this is not going to be stained. This base is going to be painted, so hopefully you won't see that when it's done. But other than that, it's come out fine. I've got to round these corners off yet. That's still to be done. But yes, it's all right. It's starting to look a lot better, and I think you'll see when it's all together, when the engine frame is on there, it'll just look. It will just look a lot better because it's now got the right height. The flywheel will be actually at a decent height, not touching the base. So yeah, that's coming along nicely. But I've kind of been distracted with other projects, so this one is taking some time, but we are getting there. We are very nearly ready to put the Marklin vertical back together. Everything's cleaned up nicely. I was pleased to discover that the flywheel's cast brass, which explains why it's heavy. And yeah, that's it's all cleaned up really nicely. Obviously, we've got some issues to fix regarding the this and the eccentric and everything. But yeah, ready to go back together. So let's get on with it. Well, got it partially reassembled, as you can see. We've got the engine frame and everything, and the next stage is to put the crankshaft in. And as you know, there was a bit of a problem on the piston cylinder end, which I couldn't really fathom out, and I finally worked out what was going on. So we'll close in and have a closer look at that. Now obviously it's not in the engine frame, but basically the problem was that the way you assemble it is that this is the eccentric, that goes over there like that, then you've got the crank that goes on the end like that, and then you've got a nut that goes on there which clamps the crank to the crankshaft. But I couldn't see any way of doing this without locking up this eccentric, and I thought, well, you know, this is not right. That's not how it's supposed to work. And then I was looking at it closely, and I realised that there's an awful lot of slop in the eccentric, as in the hole in the eccentric is way bigger than the actual threaded part of the shaft. And it suddenly occurred to me that the reason this doesn't work is there's an actual part missing, a very small part, but something very significant. There should be a sleeve in there so that the crank goes over there and then is clamped down onto that sleeve, and that allows you to tighten the nut, which locks the crank to the crankshaft, but this is still free to turn. And all it is, it's literally that. It is literally a tiny little brass sleeve. Like, that's all it is. That's all that was missing, but it makes all the difference. So if I pop that into the eccentric like that, then what we can do is that goes over there like that. Then we can put that on there, and I'll do this bit off camera, but basically the nut goes on there, obviously, and I'll tighten that down and show you the difference. Now the crank is tight. This is all tight, but this is free to move, which allows the engine to run either in one direction or the other. And that is basically what was missing, and that was why it wasn't, I couldn't work out why it wouldn't, why it was all clamped up so it only went in one direction, because that little spacer sticks slightly proud of the end of the, as you can see, there's a very slight gap there, and the nut clamps down, clamps the crank down onto that spacer, which in turn clamps it to the crankshaft. So it allows this to turn freely, but this is tight on the crankshaft. So hopefully this should work in both directions when we get it back together. Finally, the completed Marklin 4122 hybrid. And I'm still going to call it a hybrid because it's never going to look exactly like the original. This boiler is much larger in diameter and much shorter in height than the original Marklin boiler, so we're going to stick with the hybrid. Although I think the riser makes an awful lot of difference. It was well worth spending the time machining that up, and there was a lot of machining to be done on this. This has taken me about 6 weeks, I think, 6 or 7 weeks now. I haven't worked on it continuously. Obviously there's other things that have required my attention, but no, there's a lot of work gone into this. But I think, I hope you'll agree, it looks okay. It's not half bad. It's come out very nicely indeed. I'll since the last clip, I've had to still had to do quite a bit of work, so we'll stop it and I'll close in on something, some of the things, and you can see what I've done. As you can see, I've modified the firebox entrance. This was basically because my little gas burner would go through the original, would go through here fine, but it was way too close to the base of the boiler, and cutting this slot allows me to drop it down, and I've gained over ½ an inch of clearance between the top of the burner and the base of the boiler. So that's why that's there. Now when I came to reattach the main steam pipe, the top part of the regulator was quite badly damaged. I didn't notice it when I'd unsoldered it, but when I had a closer look at it, it was quite badly damaged. So I've machined up this little sleeve which covers the damaged part of the regulator and fits over that nicely, and then fits over the steam pipe, and that's been soldered in place, and that I think cleans it up quite nicely. I've also manufactured a couple of small wooden handles for the lever on the regulator and the lever on the whistle. They turned out quite nice. So yeah, so that was a little bit more work. And also manufactured a new exhaust pipe. There was an exhaust pipe on here, but it was in a pretty mangled state, and also they tend to have this little cone shaped bit on the end of them, which I've also manufactured. So yeah, so that was that, and now we'll get on to the bit that caused me the most grief and took the most amount of time. The chimney cowl, or whatever it is that's stuck on top of the chimney. Now fortunately I've got some good pictures of the original 4122, and I was able to closely have a look at what they've done. I don't know whether this is supposed to be a replica of some sort of spark arrestor or something like that, but anyway, that took a considerable amount of work. I ended up machining the two end pieces out of some home cast aluminium, and then I was at a loss for what I could use for this perforated bit of tin plate that goes around the middle. And scratching my head over that, I was thinking I might have to actually drill out a thin sheet of tin plate and wrap it round myself. But in the end, I found something that I could use, and I'll show you what that was. Yeah, I found these on eBay. 2 for a £5. What they are little tea strainers. The idea is you put your tea bag in there and hook that over the side of your cup, and away you go. Perfect. Almost exactly the right size. I mean, I had to cut it down a little bit, it was too long, but yeah, that was what the chimney cowl was basically made from, plus a bit of machined up home cast aluminium. But yeah, it's amazing what you can find and what you can use. So all that's left now then is to run it. So I hope it will run okay. Now I've got the eccentric sorted out with that missing sleeve. Not only should it run, but we should be able to get it to run in both directions. The only thing that concerns me is, we'll stop it. If you remember, there's a missing tooth on the bevel gear that drives the dummy governor. Just here. I can't remember whether it's on this one or whether it's on the drive dog, one of them, and it does occasionally catch. I'm hoping that it won't cause a problem. There's not really much I can do about that. I could, I suppose, braze it up, refile the tooth, and maybe I may do that if it does cause a problem, but I'm hoping that it'll be okay. So yeah, let's see if we can actually get this thing running after all the work I've done on it.